Dawn spreads slowly over the Persian Gulf. The sea looks calm, too calm. Petty Officer Daniel Carter stands on the starboard deck of the American destroyer, USS Mason, staring across miles of gray water. The early light turns the horizon into a thin silver blade. Somewhere beyond it lies Iran. The air smells like diesel fuel and salt. Carter grips the railing, knuckles pale beneath his gloves. He has been in the Navy for 6 years, but the silence this morning feels different, heavier. Every sailor aboard feels it. War has not been declared, but everyone knows something is coming. Behind him, the ship hums with restrained energy. Radar operators whisper inside the Combat Information Center. Deck crews move missiles into launch-ready positions. Helicopters sit folded on the flight deck like sleeping insects. Commander Hayes walks onto the deck, his boots striking metal with quiet authority. Radar just picked up more patrol craft leaving the Iranian coast, he says. Carter turns. How many, sir? Hayes exhales slowly. Too many? The words hang in the cold morning air. Across the water, somewhere beyond sight, Iranian Revolutionary Guard boats are forming. Fast attack craft, small, fast, heavily armed. Perfect for swarm tactics. Carter has studied the briefing maps. If they rush together, dozens of boats firing rockets and missiles at once. Even a modern destroyer can be overwhelmed. The radio crackles. A voice from the bridge cuts through the static. Multiple contacts. Bearing 085. Range 40 miles. Speed increasing. Carter's stomach tightens. This is not a patrol anymore. This is the opening move. The loudspeaker erupts across the ship. General quarters. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Sirens scream. Crewmen sprint across the deck, boots pounding metal. Missile hatches open with mechanical precision. The ship shifts direction, cutting through the water like a blade. Carter runs toward his gun station. Above him, a helicopter lifts from the deck, rotors slicing the quiet sky. Its sensors will be the ship's eyes. The Persian Gulf is waking up. Inside his headset, Carter hears the radar operator again, voice tight now. Contacts multiplying. 30, 40. A pause, then a whisper. More behind them. Carter stares at the rising sun. Small black shapes are appearing on the horizon. Fast, very fast. Commander Hayes raises binoculars beside him. For a moment he says nothing. Then quietly, God help us. They're coming in a swarm. The first missiles have not yet been fired. But the Gulf is already on the edge of explosion, and Carter realizes something chilling. If one mistake happens in the next few minutes, the entire region could ignite into war. The sun climbs higher over the Persian Gulf. What looked like tiny black dots on the horizon only minutes ago are now unmistakable. Boats, dozens of them. Petty Officer Daniel Carter braces himself behind the mounted Mk-38 25mm chain gun on the starboard side of the destroyer. The weapon's optics flicker to life in front of his eyes, magnifying the distant shapes racing across the water. Fast attack craft, low in the water, narrow hulls, engines screaming. Exactly the kind used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. Inside Carter's headset, voices overlap. Contact speed 45 knots. Multiple radar locks forming. Swarm formation confirmed. The enemy boats are spreading out like hunting wolves. Commander Hayes appears beside Carter again, binoculars glued to his face. They're testing us, Hayes mutters. Carter doesn't answer. His focus stays on the gun sight. The boats are still far away, but their intent is already clear. Swarm tactics. Some will carry rockets. Others may carry anti-ship missiles. A few could even be suicide boats packed with explosives. The destroyer's radar can track them all. But numbers matter, and there are a lot of them. Inside the combat center, alarms begin chiming. A voice bursts through the radio network. Electronic signals detected. Possible missile radar. Carter feels his pulse spike. The first shot of a war can happen in seconds, or not at all. Everything depends on decisions made in quiet rooms far away. But here on the deck of the USS Mason, those decisions feel very close. Overhead, the American helicopter circles the formation of Iranian boats. Its camera feeding live video back to the ship. The pilot's voice cuts through the radio. I count at least 50 vessels. Repeating, 50 vessels. Hayes lowers the binoculars slowly. That's not a patrol, he says. That's an attack group. A moment of silence passes. Then Carter sees something change. One of the Iranian boats surges forward ahead of the others. On the gun sight's zoom display, he can make out two men standing behind a launcher mounted near the bow. Missile rails. His throat tightens. The radio erupts again. Thermal signature detected, possible missile prep. Carter grips the firing controls. His orders are simple. Do not fire first, but be ready. The distance between them is closing fast now. 10 miles. 9. 8. The helicopter above suddenly shouts a warning. Boat accelerating. Bearing 087. Carter watches the lead boat race forward like a spear aimed at the destroyer. In the gun sight, he sees a man lift something onto the launcher. The ocean feels suddenly very small. Commander Hayes whispers into the radio. Stand by. Stand by. Carter's finger hovers over the trigger. And then, the launcher on the Iranian boat tilts upward. The launcher tilts upward. Petty Officer Daniel Carter feels time slow to a crawl. Through the magnified sight of the Mk-38 chain gun, the Iranian boat fills the center of his screen. Two men stand beside the launcher, one gripping a long cylinder that glints faintly in the morning sun. Missile or rocket, either one could tear through steel. The distance is closing fast. 7 miles. 6. Inside Carter's headset, the combat center explodes with voices. Thermal spike confirmed. Possible missile guidance radar. Command requesting rules of engagement. Carter hears Commander Hayes' voice cut through the chaos. Negative fire. Repeat, hold fire. The order feels like ice in Carter's chest. Hold fire. Even as the weapon points directly at them. Above the destroyer, the MH-60C Hawk helicopter circles tightly. Its camera zooms in on the lead boat, sending sharp images to the ship's command center. The pilot speaks again. Visual confirmation. Launcher appears active. Another pause. Then, wait, stand by. Carter keeps the gun perfectly still. Sweat runs down his temple despite the cool wind. The Iranian boat surges forward again, bouncing violently across the waves. Spray explodes behind its engines. Behind it, the rest of the swarm spreads wider across the sea. They are trying to surround the destroyer. Classic harassment maneuver. But the launcher remains pointed directly toward the American ship. 5 miles. Inside the combat center, a young radar operator whispers something that makes the entire room freeze. Signal lock detected. Carter hears Commander Hayes curse quietly. Damn it. Another voice shouts through the radio network. Possible targeting radar from shore battery. That changes everything. If coastal missile batteries are involved, this is no longer a swarm attack. It's a trap. Carter tightens his grip on the firing controls. The destroyer begins to accelerate. Engines roaring as the ship cuts a new course across the water. Defensive maneuver. But the lead Iranian boat is now dangerously close. 4 miles. Through the gun sight, Carter sees the man beside the launcher slam the cylinder into place. The second man grabs the aiming controls. Carter's heartbeat pounds inside his ears. Commander Hayes lifts the radio again. His voice is steady but tight. All stations. Weapons free only if fired upon. Carter exhales slowly. That means one thing. They must wait. Wait until the enemy shoots first. The helicopter pilot suddenly shouts again. Launcher movement detected. Carter watches as the missile rail angles slightly downward, directly toward the destroyer. The man beside it presses something. A spark flashes near the launcher. Carter's finger tightens on the trigger. And then, the ocean erupts with a sudden white plume beside the boat. For one horrifying second, Carter believes the missile has launched, but the plume comes from the water itself, a massive column of spray rising violently from the sea. The explosion throws a wall of water into the sky. For a moment, the Iranian boat disappears completely. Petty Officer Daniel Carter jerks back from the gun sight, blinking through the spray that rains down across the deck of the USS Mason. The sea churns violently, where the boat had been seconds before. Contact lost. Someone shouts over the radio. The helicopter pilot circles lower. Stand by. I'm trying to get visual. Carter leans back into the gun sight, adjusting the zoom. The water settles just enough to reveal fragments, twisted metal, shattered fiberglass, fuel spreading across the waves. The boat is gone, not hit by the destroyer, not struck by a missile. It has been blown upward from beneath. Commander Hayes lowers his binoculars slowly. That wasn't us, he says. Inside the combat center, the realization spreads like electricity. Possible naval mine. The word echoes through the radio network. Mine. The Persian Gulf suddenly feels far more dangerous than moments before. The Iranian swarm reacts instantly. Boats swerve away from the blast zone, engines screaming as they scatter across the water. Even from miles away, the explosion has terrified them. Carter scans the waves carefully now. Mines can drift. Invisible killers floating just beneath the surface. The helicopter pilot confirms it moments later. Debris pattern consistent with a mine detonation. Hayes exhales sharply. So someone mined the Gulf. But the question no one answers is simple. Who? Iran mines its own waters sometimes to block enemy ships. But this detonation occurred directly in the path of their own attack craft. That makes no sense. Carter's headset crackles again. Additional underwater contacts detected. The sonar operator reports. Another pause. Then, multiple metallic signatures. Possible minefield. The words send a ripple of tension through every sailor aboard the destroyer. The Iranian swarm slows. Boats circle cautiously now, keeping distance from the blast area. Their attack has stalled. But the situation is suddenly far more complicated. Commander Hayes grips the radio. Helicopter, expand search. Confirm boundaries of that minefield. The pilot acknowledges and banks the MH-60 Seahawk northward. Carter continues scanning through the gun sight. The Iranian boats remain out there, dozens of them, waiting, watching. No missiles fired, no rockets launched, just silence over the uneasy water. Then the sonar operator speaks again. His voice is lowered this time, almost disbelieving. "Sir, I'm detecting propulsion noise." Hayes frowns. "From where?" The answer arrives a second later. "Below the minefield." A pause, then the final words send a chill across the deck. Something large is moving under the surface. Carter slowly lifts his eyes from the sight and stares at the water surrounding the destroyer. Whatever destroyed that Iranian boat might not have been a mine after all. The Persian Gulf grows eerily quiet. Petty Officer Daniel Carter keeps his eyes locked on the restless water around the USS Mason. The destroyer glides forward slowly now, engines reduced to a cautious rumble. No one wants to charge blindly into a possible minefield. Or worse, the sonar operator's words echo inside Carter's headset. Something large is moving under the surface. Commander Hayes leans over the radio console beside him. "Sonar, confirm contact." A few seconds pass, then the reply comes. "Contact bearing 079. Depth approximately 70 meters. Speed increasing." Carter's throat tightens. 70 meters below the ship. Something is moving fast. Submarine. The word doesn't need to be spoken. Across the horizon, the Iranian attack boats have slowed their approach. Their formation has broken apart. Vessels drifting cautiously beyond the suspected minefield. They seem just as uncertain as the Americans. The helicopter circles back toward the destroyer, its sensors searching the water below. The pilot's voice cuts through the radio. "I'm dropping sonar buoy now." A small cylinder splashes into the Gulf, disappearing beneath the waves. Instantly it begins transmitting acoustic data back to the helicopter. Inside the combat center, technicians analyze the signals. Carter hears the tension building in their voices. Propeller signature detected. Blade count analysis running. Then, "Sir, this does not match Iranian submarines." Hayes stiffens. "What does it match?" A long pause. Finally the sonar specialist answers. "Unknown classification." Carter stares across the water again. A cold wind sweeps over the deck. A known submarine operating beneath a suspected minefield, while Iranian attack boats hover nearby. The situation is becoming dangerously unstable. The helicopter pilot suddenly shouts. "Thermal disturbance detected below buoy." Carter grips the gun handles even tighter. The ocean surface bulges slightly several hundred meters, away just enough for trained eyes to notice. Then it disappears. Inside the combat center, alarms begin to flash. Submarine accelerating. Hayes grabs the radio. All hands prepare for anti-submarine engagement. The destroyer's torpedo launch systems come online instantly. Crewmen rush across the deck as the ship's sonar locks onto the moving target beneath the Gulf. Carter hears the operator counting distance. Range decreasing. 300 meters. 200. The submarine is coming straight toward them. Fast. Far too fast. The helicopter pilot suddenly gasps. Contact surfacing. The ocean erupts. A dark steel shape bursts upward through the waves, throwing foam and water high into the air. For a moment, Carter cannot believe what he's seeing. The submarine is enormous, much larger than any Iranian vessel, and along its tower, strange markings glisten in the morning light. Not American, not Iranian. Commander Hayes whispers the question everyone aboard the ship is. The submarine rises slowly through the foam. Water pours down its dark steel hull as it settles on the surface of the Persian Gulf, towering above the waves like a silent predator. Petty Officer Daniel Carter stares through the optics of his Mk-38 chain gun, trying to process what he's seeing. The vessel is enormous, far larger than the Iranian Ghadir-class submarines they were briefed about. This one is long, heavy, built for deep oceans, not the shallow waters of the Gulf. Commander Hayes lifts his binoculars again. "Markings?" he asks. Carter zooms tighter on the tower. At first, the surface looks blank. Then the light catches something beneath the dripping seawater. Faded paint, letters, but the waves make them difficult to read. Behind the destroyer, the Iranian swarm has frozen. Dozens of attack boats sit motionless across the water, engines idling. Even from miles away, it is clear their crews are just as stunned. No one expected this. The helicopter circles cautiously above the submarine, Cameras transmitting clear images back to the USS Mason. Inside the combat center, analysts study every inch of the vessel. Length estimate, 100 meters. Missile hatches visible on upper deck. Configuration resembles Russian design. Commander Hayes lowers the binoculars slowly. That's impossible, he mutters. Russia has submarines like that, but none are supposed to be operating here. The radio crackles again. Bridge, we're detecting multiple launch tubes on the hull. Carter feels his stomach drop. Ballistic missile tubes. This is not just a submarine. This is a strategic weapon platform. The helicopter pilot suddenly shouts through the radio. Movement on the tower. Carter shifts the optics again. A hatch opens slowly on top of the submarine. Steam drifts upward. Then a single figure climbs out onto the tower. A sailor in a dark uniform. He stands there for several seconds, staring directly at the American destroyer. Not moving, not signaling, just watching. The helicopter zooms closer, capturing a clear view of the uniform. Inside the combat center, someone whispers something into the microphone. The words travel instantly through every headset on the ship. Uniform insignia confirmed. A long pause follows. Then the operator finished the sentence. People's Liberation Army Navy, China. Carter feels the weight of the moment crash down on him. Chinese strategic submarine, surfacing in the middle of a standoff between the United States and Iran. In one of the most volatile waterways on Earth, Commander Hayes stares at the submarine tower again. The Chinese sailor lifts a pair of binoculars and calmly studies the American ship. Then the submarine's forward missile hatch begins to move. Slowly, the missile hatch continues to open. Metal plates slide apart along the spine of the submarine, revealing the dark circular mouth of a launch tube. Petty Officer Daniel Carter feels his pulse hammering in his ears. A Chinese ballistic missile submarine has surfaced in the middle of a confrontation between the United States and Iran, and now one of its launch tubes is opening. The implications are terrifying. Commander Hayes grabs the radio. Combat Center confirm what we're seeing. Inside the ship, keyboards rattle and sensors focus on the submarine. A moment later, the answer comes back. Missile tube number 3 is opening. We cannot confirm payload. Carter tightens his grip on the gun. His weapon is useless against something like this. A ballistic missile launch would change the entire world in minutes. The helicopter hovers carefully above the submarine. Cameras zoomed in close. The Chinese officer on the tower remains calm, watching the American destroyer as if this moment were routine. Behind them, the Iranian boats begin moving again, slowly at first, then forming a loose circle around the scene. They are watching too. 3 armed forces, 3 nations, all staring at each other across a few miles of water. One wrong move could ignite a global war. Commander Hayes speaks quietly into the fleet communications channel, an identified Chinese submarine. This is United States Navy destroyer USS Mason. You are operating in a conflict zone. State your intentions immediately. The message echoes across the open sea. No answer comes. The missile tube lid finish sliding open. Inside the dark launch chamber, something begins rising slowly upward on a mechanical lift. Carter's breath stops. Inside the combat center, a voice shouts, "Object elevating from launch tube." Radar operators scramble to track it. Hayes whispers under his breath, "Please don't be a missile." The cylindrical object continues rising, but something about it looks wrong. Too small, too narrow. The helicopter pilot zooms his camera even closer. Then his confused voice fills every headset. "Sir, that's not a missile." Carter squints through the gun optics. The object rises completely out of the tube now. A tall metal pole, topped with a small container. Commander Hayes frowns. What the hell is that? The container suddenly bursts open. A bright object shoots into the sky, trailing smoke. For a split second, Carter thinks the launch has begun. But instead of accelerating like a missile, the object slows. Then a large fabric canopy snaps open high above the submarine. A parachute. Dangling beneath it is a small cylindrical device drifting gently toward the water. The helicopter pilot gasps, "Sir, that's a buoy." Hayes stares upward in disbelief. A buoy descending slowly between the American destroyer, the Iranian swarm, and the Chinese submarine. Then the radio receiver on the bridge crackles to life. A calm voice speaks in accented English. The parachute drifts slowly toward the water. Petty Officer Daniel Carter watches the small cylindrical buoy descending between 3 armed forces ready for war. American destroyer, Iranian attack swarm, Chinese ballistic missile submarine, all of them silent. The device splashes gently into the Persian Gulf. For several seconds, nothing happens. Then the buoy stabilizes itself upright. Small antennae unfold from its top like metal petals. Inside the USS Mason, alarms give way to cautious curiosity. A signal suddenly appears on the communications console. Bridge. We're receiving a broadcast, the operator says. Commander Hayes leans forward. Patch it through. The main screen in the Combat Information Center flickers to life. Grainy video appears. Carter cannot see the screen from the deck, but the stunned silence in everyone's voices tells him something serious is playing. The calm Chinese voice returns over the radio. This recording was captured 6 hours ago. The video feed shows the dark waters of the Gulf before sunrise. A small vessel drifts quietly near a shipping lane. Not Iranian, not American, unmarked. Several men move quickly across the deck. They lower something heavy into the water. A mine. The recording zooms closer. Carter hears someone inside the combat center whisper in disbelief. Those uniforms. The camera focuses sharply on the men working on the deck. Commander Hayes grips the console. That's impossible. The uniforms are Western, not American Navy, but unmistakably belonging to a private military contractor group known to operate in several conflict zones. The men finish deploying the mine and speed away into the darkness. The video cuts. The Chinese officer's voice speaks again. This minefield was placed intentionally to provoke conflict between Iran and the United States. Carter stares across the water. The Iranian boats are listening too. Every radio channel in the region is carrying the transmission now. Hayes exhales slowly. So someone wanted this war. The buoy continues transmitting. More footage appears. Satellite images, ship tracking data, proof of covert sabotage. The Iranian boats begin pulling back from the destroyer. Engines turning west toward their coast. No missiles fired. No rockets launched. The swarm dissolves quietly across the horizon. Above them, the helicopter circles in cautious relief. The Chinese submarine remains motionless beside the destroyer, its massive hull rising from the calm sea. A silent witness. Commander Hayes finally lifts the radio again. His voice carries across the Gulf. To the Chinese vessel. Message received. A pause. Then he adds quietly, "You may have just prevented a war." Minutes later, the submarine's tower hatch closes. Ballast tanks flood. The massive vessel sinks slowly beneath the Persian Gulf. Within seconds, it vanishes completely. The ocean becomes calm again. Carter finally relaxes his grip on the